In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Bitcoin. We're going to be doing it from multiple different perspectives. We're going to be taking a look at whether or not Bitcoin currently is on time, lagging, maybe expectations for a potential outbreak and or new all-time high in 2023. Actually, we're not going to get into that this session, but it will be in an upcoming video. We are going to take a look at then the swing traders time frame. We'll do this on the 2 and the 8 hour time frame to show you what the continuation of this trade that has been taking place on Twitter. And we're going to put that all together right now. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're not, welcome back. This is Jordan with Conquer Trading and Investing. I'm going to go ahead and just zoom in over here a little bit and just point out that we have below us over here a pretty important trend line. This is the U.S. banking crisis trend line and then the save by BlackRock. If we were to see any further continuation of the breakdown, the last video we left off and price was actually trading at the all-time high. This is the last video we did together. It was posted both on Twitter and on YouTube, and we had a little bit of reservations about the price action, and we said that we would like to see a move into 32,500, but if we break below 30,200, that is the beginning of a pullback. That pullback is currently underway, and we're currently looking for the earliest opportunity out of it. We'll get into that in a moment. Before we do, I just want to check out where we are. If you see and look at Bitcoin in relation to these past cycles, and you can see that currently Bitcoin over here, if April was indeed the top, if April was the top of Bitcoin's, this is April 2021. Obviously, price peaked in November 2021. Also, structurally, many things point to either one of these being the top. We'll consult them both. You can see these past cycles over here, the 2017 high, the 2013 high. They're all lined up right now as if April were the high. And you can see that as Bitcoin approaches the halving, right now the halving date is around, I do believe, the 18th of April 2024. You could see that price thus far, if April was indeed the high, it's kind of on time, right? Now, past cycles, they did bottom in June. This one did not bottom until much later, until November. And you could see, though, that right now they both in previous cycles have entered into this consolidation phase. There are a lot of analysts looking for potential new all-time highs in 2023 by the end of the year. Now, something drastically different would need to take place, but if you were to follow the price action or structure of the 2020 cycle, you would see that it's possible to go ahead and challenge or make those new all-time highs if we were to see a big move up. I think there would need to be a catalyst such as an approval of a spot Bitcoin ETF or maybe some type of massive stimulus measures out of China. I don't think either one of those are going to happen. Actually, I think we're going to find out very soon that the latest spot ETF, the ARK ETF, is going to be delayed. It'll be interesting to see how the market reacts. We'll look at that in a moment. And I also want to look at what the real high was. The real price high was in November 2021. And if that line up all previous cycles, as this is the high over here, you could see a couple of different things. You could see that, well, this time, that the previous cycle, 2017 high, right? You could see that they bottomed around the same time. So that lines up pretty well. And you could see that also the 2013 cycle bottomed also within this zone. And you could see that right now, around this time, previous cycles kind of went sideways, right? Accumulation zones. And this would hint that, you know what, if we were to see, we have April 18th. Let's pull it up over here really quick. Looking for April the 18th, 2024, the halving. And expectations would be around the halving that price is going to be somewhere around, let's call it $30,000. Lines up pretty well with what my personal expectations are for where price should be around the halving. Now, I don't know what happens between now in April 2024. The truth is that the US could enter into a recession, and depending on how Bitcoin acted during that recession, we'll see what happens. We could also have, at any point in time during this tightening cycle, we could have a credit event. And if that were to happen, I assume that Bitcoin, like all other risk assets, are going to be under massive pressure. The good news is the further that we move out without going ahead and testing these lows, then the greater the chance that even during a credit event, the low would not be taken out. Now, we're going to have to get this bottom line over here. This is a trend line that comes off of the very wick bottom of the March 2020 global lockdowns lows on Bitcoin. So it's really, as we get around the date of the halving, that the chances are, even during an extreme credit event, that Bitcoin's low is in place and that the likelihood of it being taken out or have been significantly diminished. I talked about $30,000 being pretty close to where my expectations are. Price will be right around the halving. If you notice this line over here, this yellow line, in the previous two cycles, you have seen the price at the halving right around that line. You can see over here, the price in the 2016 halving is right on that line, even though prior to the line, it traded above. In the last halving, it's a little bit below that line, not by much, by about $500. But again, at the time of the halving, price right around that trend line. So my expectations are, if that we continue to get a lot more of the same, or similarities at least, that there is a chance that Bitcoin is going to be trading right around $35,000 at the halving. If we do, then I would say that Bitcoin is trading really very much on time. Now, one thing that you also noticed is that in these past two cycles, prior to the date of the halving, that price was able, off of the low, to go ahead and it was able to make a full retracement to the 0.786 retracement fib. Here you could see it happening right before the halving. In the previous cycle, you could see it happening again. And that happened, let's say, we're past that point right now. We're about right here. So it happened about a couple of months ago, but price before the halving made it to that 0.786 fib. And the question is whether or not it will be able to do it. I know a lot of people right now, the question is does Bitcoin make a new all-time high in 2023? And for me, the question is this time different in so much as, is it even able to make it to that $50,000 level? My intuition says that it's not going to be able to. Now, if we're able to break out the next leg up, that's above 32,500. We covered that in our previous video, the last one we did together. Well, then that opens up the door for a move into 37,500 into the $40,000 area. And then it would be on the table, right? It would be looking a lot more likely. If you look at the volatility, Bitcoin right now is at an all-time low in volatility. Again, this is why some people are looking for a big move to come into play right now. It may or may not happen. If you look at some interesting things here, this is the previous cycle, 2016 in blue. And again, this is days past the halving event. So we looked at this from lining these cycles up. If April was the all-time high this cycle, we looked at lining all them up from the all-time high if November was. This is lining them all up now from the halving dates. And what's interesting about lining them up from this view is that you see that Bitcoin topped the same time as it did the previous cycle. And then it also bottomed in almost the same time it did the previous cycle. So it closely resembled this cycle up until the bottom. And off of the bottom, it's closely resembling this cycle, the previous cycle, two previous cycles, 2012 halving. And even though volatility is historically low right now, if price action were to, in any way, shape, or form, show any type of further similarities, it enters into two more 3-month periods of with this move in between of really, really suppressed volatility. So even though right now volatility is suppressed, we saw that there's not much going on the network. there's not much activity. It's usually around the time that Bitcoin hits those new all-time highs that you see a lot of activity build up on the network, a lot more new people come in chasing that momentum. You're here now, you're early, but really when this picks up is going to be when Bitcoin is hitting those new all-time highs again. Wanted to take a look at this line over here with you. Bitcoin has been having trouble holding on a three-day basis over this trend line. It's just a simple trend line starting here in January 2022. You can see that support was turned into resistance twice. And since then, we haven't been able to close above it on a three-day basis. On the daily basis, we have two close above it so far. I'm going to go ahead and just move that trend line down off of to this touch here and this touch over here. Again, it was resistance here, support over here. And the reason I'm showing this line here today is in case that we have a further breakdown. Let's go, and I want this to show you that, remember this line? This is, we just talked about the US banking crisis. That's over here. And into the BlackRock save, that's over here. If price were to break down further, we have two areas of interest. We'll look at them both. But one of them is price coming in, testing or taking out that's low right over here. And I just want you to be aware of this support below it in case it does. If we were to lose this line, this would be an invalidation, in my opinion, of the bull market breakout. And then at that point, we'll have to be watching what's going on. Where we left off together, so let me get rid of this really quick, or let me go ahead and just push this to the side and just come back up to the 8 hour with you. And where we left off, right? We were talking, price was right here. We didn't love the price action. And we were saying, if we do break, hoping that we make it into 32,500, but it said if we broke 30,200, the pullback begins, and the pullback is currently underway. So I want to look what expectations are right now. This is the trend line. This is the U.S. banking crisis. The SEC takes a lawsuit versus Binance and Coinbase, and the BlackRock saves the day trend line. Now, we're expected, I think it's the 14th of August, the next ruling on a spot ETF, and I think ARK Investments is the one that's up for it. If the SEC were to come out and deny that, or not deny it, but push it out to the next date, at that point in time, where this is again, BlackRock is the ETF is imminent. And then if SEC lets us know, and it's looking like that way, that's not the case, that could be a catalyst that takes us for a leg down, even to test this area. So a break of this trend line, that sets up a move that could take us down towards that $25,000 level. Now, that's not happening right now. We're still holding it. And even though we hit this pullback at 30,200, we are looking at what that means as far as, let me just bring this down, the earliest opportunity of the resumption out of it. If you've been following on Twitter, I've been tracking this and just pointing out since the $30,200 pullback, where the earliest opportunity would be for a resumption, right? And for that to be confirmed, price needs to trade above 30,500. But the earliest entry occurred over here. It occurred at 29,000, almost 400. And then since then, we've been monitoring the trade. I'm going to take away this trend line for 1 second, only because if you've been following on Twitter, I said that my stop loss was down over here. Now it's right above that trend line support. Nevertheless, this is where I believe this trade, which is the earliest entry, it's aggressive entry. This is a more conservative entry and or confirmation that this would be invalidated, right? And this is where I believe it would be invalidated. Yesterday on the live stream, we talked about just whether or not, if price were to break below this trend line, whether or not that would be an earlier exit. Since that on Twitter, I did not share that. That's not how I'm going ahead and continuing this analysis, keeping the stop loss down over here. And you can see that this continues. Here's the deviation. Look on the chart, the deviation below this last low over here, right? That's the yellow line that you're looking at. And price right now has broken up into this first yellow dot over here. and is coming back into the demand zone, and it continues to hold it barely. It's on the weekend, not really too much volume, I imagine, on the weekend. We'll see what happens. My expectations on any type of trade I take is that, I understand what my win percentage is. Let's say it's 40%. I expect 60% of the times to take losses. So any trade is just an individual trade. This is the earliest opportunity that maybe we could be seeing what would be a resumption out of this pullback. Again, we had very good awareness in calling where that would be. If we break down from over here at that point in time, we could be looking at this turning into more of a correction. And then this would be an important level to hold. If it did not hold, again, and we just looked at it from a different angle, that takes us down into this trend line. That's something that would need to hold. Otherwise, something else is happening. We'll find out what the narrative is at the time, but things would not be looking good. Over here, though, we've seen nothing more than continued consolidation right near the yearly highs. If we're able to resume out of over here while holding this trend line, I think that we take a look at 32,500 and likely break above it. But, we'll see. We'll see what happens. So, everyone, I hope you have a beautiful day. Thanks for watching. If you have the opportunity to go ahead and hit that like button, I appreciate the support. If you're new here, welcome. Do subscribe for more. Have a beautiful day, everyone. God bless you. I'll talk to you soon.